Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. I've done a lot of in real life talks. This is going to be my first virtual one. I do hope there is a live audience listening to it because it's super hard for me to see how many people are there. And I have to amp up my crowd work skills because it's definitely hard to do it in a virtual setting. Anyway, so today I'm Vivek. I'm one of the founders and CEO of HackerRank. Today we're going to get deeper into the concept of remote hiring. And this is what we're going to cover from an agenda perspective. I'm going to give a quick overview about the company, about HackerRank, as well as remote hiring, and then go deeper into how do you conduct effective remote technical interviews, and then end with predictions. And if my predictions come true, hopefully DeveloperWeek folks will be kind enough to invite me back again next year. So we'll see how those predictions go. All right, so let's get started with the overview about the company and the state of remote hiring. How many of you heard about HackerRank? How many of you know HackerRank? This is my classic question when I do it in real life. So I'm assuming a bunch of you are just raising your hand, sitting in front of the Mac. But for those of you who don't know, at HackerRank, our mission is to accelerate the world's innovation. We achieve this mission with a three-pronged strategy. The first one is to increase the supply of developers in the world. The second is we build a hiring solution that helps companies hire developers based on skills versus pedigree. And finally, the third pillar of the strategy is we enable companies to understand the skill sets that they have internally in their organization, understand what skill gaps they have so that they can appropriately plan their developer workforce. So increase the supply of developers, build the best hiring solution, enabling companies to manage their entire developer organization. That's what we do. That's the three-pronged strategy that we take to accomplish the mission. We launched in 2013, and over the last 7 years, we have transformed the hiring process for over 2,000 companies across the globe. 25 of the Fortune 100 companies are our customers. We have assessed over 11 million developers. That's about a quarter of the world's developer population. And just last year, 10% of the developers who changed jobs in the entire world took an assessment through HackerRank. So that's the scale and scope with which we operate. Obviously, the COVID and the pandemic has changed a lot of things. And one of the things that has actually changed is the transformation of the hiring process into a remote first, or more specifically, remote only hiring process. And we've seen a lot of our customers make the transition. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. You're probably familiar with talent is distributed everywhere, opportunity is not. Frankly, when I read this, there's almost a feeling of pathos. There's a sadness. Why is this the case? And for the first time, I believe we're going to disprove this adage. Remote work and remote hiring is going to fundamentally change the way that we're going to build companies. Let me show you a few examples. We're going to, just based on the job postings, just over the last maybe 2-3 months, the growth rate of remote work has almost doubled and is going to continue to grow at a very, very healthy pace over the next few years. 60% of the hiring managers, when we did a survey, are planning to encourage remote work or work remotely more than before. And when you do a survey, 77% of workforce just prefer to work from home. People have just gotten used to the flexibility as well as the productivity gains that they're able to get when they're working from home. And then I was just browsing the Facebook's careers page. Don't worry, for folks from HackerRank who are listening, I'm not applying to Facebook. I'm fully committed to HackerRank. But it's super interesting to see this title, a new role that popped up, and it's called Director of Remote Work. And the sole responsibility of this role is to help Facebook transition into a remote first company. And that includes everything from setting up the process for you to do remote hiring well, process for you to do remote onboarding well, the communication that needs to change within your organization to make sure that you don't classify people as in-person and remote, to make sure that you have like a free flow of information. This is the sole responsibility of this person, of this job role, as well as for the team, to help Facebook transition into a remote first organization. And my bet is you're going to see this role pop up in many more tech companies in the future. This is a new kind of role that we're creating. So net of all, remote work and remote hiring is here to stay. There's tremendous amount of tailwind that we have on the remote hiring. And it's very exciting, also a little bit scary, but it's mostly exciting that we're going to fundamentally see different ways in which companies are going to get built. Now, with that spiel, I want to dive deeper into one portion of the whole remote work, which is how do you do developer remote hiring really well? So let's talk about it. We've been working with a lot of our customers on helping them transition into hiring developers remote. And essentially, there are three pillars. The first is how do you build a remote hiring process that you can really trust? Remember, you're not going to meet the candidate in person. The second one is the ability for you to assess advanced developer skills from anywhere. And the third pillar is to make sure that your remote interview experience is very developer friendly. I'm going to dive in a little deeper in each of these three pillars. Let's talk about the remote hiring process that you can trust. Don't worry about the screenshot on the right. I will go slightly deeper on that. You know, one of the key changes when you think about remote hiring compared to what used to happen in 2019 or maybe a few months at the start of the year when you had real on-sites and stuff. When you're about to interview a candidate, you would probably just wait outside the conference room, wait for your colleague to finish the interview process. And then like as your colleague walks out, you would probably ask, hey, how did this candidate do? What did you think? What skills should I assess this person on? Frankly, you're not supposed to do that because you're going to bias the process, but still we're all guilty of doing it. And you're also not super prepared. Like, you know, as an engineer, you're probably coding something, you're shipping something, and you see a calendar invite pop up, and you have to go and take the interview. But in a remote setting, there are no hallway conversations. You see a calendar invite, you hop on to Zoom or WebEx or whatever video conferencing tool that you use, and there you are with a candidate. You need to start interviewing. So it is very, very important that you have a very structured, disciplined hiring process. And what do I mean by that? It's very important that you understand what skills are essential for the role, who is going to evaluate those skills, how are they going to evaluate those skills and grade, so that at the end of the day, when you're about to make an offer, you receive a nice candidate packet. And this is an example of a candidate packet for Rahul Patel, talking about all the different skills that are necessary, problem solving, SQL, who has evaluated him on what skills and what is the grade this person has got, so that you as a recruiter or as a hiring manager are confident to say, okay, you know what, Rahul is a really good engineer. We have to make an offer to this person. So we fundamentally changed the way how companies can operate in a remote setting by becoming way, way more disciplined in the way that they built their remote hiring process. So that's the first pillar. The second pillar is the ability for you to assess advanced developer skills. What does this mean? You know, remote hiring and remote interviewing is not new. This used to exist in 2019. This used to exist in 2018, like, you know, prior to COVID. But remote hiring was always thought of as this basic proficiency test. Okay, you know what? I'm going to do remote hiring, but really what I'm going to do is to just figure out if this developer can code or not. That's it. I'm not going to go deeper, and I'm not going to go assess the deeper skills because I'm anyway going to invite this person on site. And so we're going to talk more about that. But now there is no option. There is no on-site. So we actually re-architected the platform, and what you're seeing is our platform called CodePair, which allows you to do pair programming remotely, which had the ability to just do simple pair programming, like single file coding challenge. We had to re-architect this platform in order for it to support multi-file real-world projects. So which means, for example, you can open up a React project and walk through that. You can open up a real shell session and go ahead and collaboratively code. You can open up a DB database question and go ahead and write SQL queries to actually see if this is going to work or not. So we had to change our architecture in order for companies as well as candidates to code real world problems on our system so that you can do all of the interviews what you used to do on site in a remote setting. That's the second pillar. And of course, you can see the scorecard on the right. This is similar to whatever I talked about in the first pillar to make sure that, hey, engineer, these are the skills that you need to evaluate. Make sure you actually go ahead and rate the candidate on those dimensions. Finally, probably the most important one, is your experience developer friendly? And developer friendly experience is not just about the tools and the solutions that you use. For example, we actually launched this new product called on Whiteboard within our pair programming solution, which allows you to conduct system design interviews easily. You can do it on your mobile. Well, it's going to be hard to draw on a mobile, but you can do it on an iPad very easily. Of course, you can do it on a Mac to go ahead and draw your system design. But developer-friendly experience doesn't just stop with the tools and solutions you use. It is also about the process. Are you preparing the candidates enough before he or she comes to the interview? Now, we are a firm believer that your interview process should be on the principle of trying to evaluate the best potential of a candidate and not to figure out, oh, how does this person answer a question when I give you a gotcha question? You don't want to do that. You want to figure out your interview process optimized to get the best potential of the candidate. And in order for you to do that, we actually recommend you to share what skills you're going to interview. There's a company that goes all the way to the other extreme and actually even shares the interviewers, the engineers who are actually going to conduct the interview process. So make sure that you can prepare candidates beforehand. What skills are we going to interview? Who's going to interview? What tools are we going to use? Go ahead and practice and use these tools beforehand so that you get yourself familiarized with. All of these things fall into creating a developer-friendly interview experience. I'll give you one last tip on this, and this is actually borrowed from Atlassian, who's one of our customers. Whenever you're setting up an interview for an hour, 45 minutes, whatever the duration is, add another calendar invite for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, where the sole purpose of that is to make sure that the candidate can set up their logistics really well. Goes a long way. We're all familiar with this. Are you able to hear me? Am I on mute? I'm just acting right now. I hope I've not been in mute all along. We're all familiar with this. Like your Bluetooth doesn't work, your camera doesn't work, or something happens. And your candidates, of course, get flustered and it impacts their interview, how they perform in the interview process. So it is very, very important that you can actually allocate 5 or 10 minutes in your interview process to make sure that the candidates can set up their logistics, their mic, camera, everything really well. So in summary, go deep, go embrace your remote hiring process fully by building a very disciplined, structured interview process. Use tools and solutions that can actually help you assess advanced skills that you used to do in an on-site setting right now in a remote. Make sure your process is a very, very developer-friendly one. And that's not just tools, but how you communicate with a candidate and all of the things that I just listed. These 3 pillars we've actually developed in partnership with a lot of our customers. Here's a small list of our customers that we work with. And what's really exciting in this list is not only are these companies hiring developers, but they're actually accelerating their hiring beyond the plan because the demand for these products is just shooting through the roof. So that's what we're seeing in the market. That's the big process change that we've actually done in our product, in our solution, and to help companies embrace remote hiring. So that's the second part of my presentation. And now to my predictions, which I know everybody's waiting to do. If this is recorded, it'll be embarrassing if my predictions come false. If it comes true, then I'll look like a hero. So we'll see what happens. So I have 6 predictions in a time period of 18 months that I expect to happen. Okay, so let's go. The first one is remote tech ops will be a new role. We saw the rise of TA ops, talent acquisition ops, rising in the last maybe 2-3 years. I think remote tech ops will become like TA ops, talent acquisition ops, in every company, every tech company that is that's growing at a very, very rapid pace. And the primary purpose of this role would be to make sure that the company can transform. You can actually help the company transform into a remote setting, remote workforce. My second prediction, I don't know how many of you are familiar with this concept of services companies. These are companies that take on huge projects from Fortune 500 companies and start to work on it. And that includes companies like Infosys, Cognizant, Wipro, a lot of companies, a lot of them based in India. I expect the top 5 services companies to have at least a 50% increase in their market cap over the next 18 months. Why do I say this? There is a tremendous acceleration of every company becoming a software company. We're all familiar with the Mark Andreessen's article that he wrote 10 years back of every company becoming a software company. But today, it is accelerating at an unbelievable pace. If you are in the healthcare industry, you need to figure out how can you support video calling, because that's the first step. That's the first part of your diagnosis. Nobody wants to come to the doctor's office for your first visit. If you're an automobile company, you have to fundamentally figure out, okay, how do I create my showroom atmosphere in an AR or a VR setting? Because not everybody is actually going to come and visit your showroom at the pace and at the volume that people used to a few years back. So every industry needs to now accelerate to become a software company. And while they're going to continue to build in-house engineering teams, they're going to be increasingly reliant on these services companies to actually go ahead and build software for them. So I do expect a massive market cap increase in the top 5 services companies. This is good news. I overall think this whole notion of remote work is going to have a positive impact on diversity and inclusion. And people have different notions of diversity and inclusion. And the thing that makes me sad oftentimes is, hey, just don't do it because it's a PR stunt. Do it because you really care about diversity and inclusion. And the reason you need to care about diversity and inclusion is if you want to build a product that is appealing to the global population, you need to consider different points of view. And if you're building a global product sitting in Silicon Valley without any kind of like diverse thoughts, it's not going to scale really well. And it's unfortunate because a lot of people know this, but you're constrained by the talent pool that you can go ahead and recruit, because your talent pool, the narrow vision of the talent pool is, oh, are you within the 10, 20 mile radius of my company? Otherwise, we're not going to hire. But now we just open the doors. The world is your oyster. You can hire people anywhere. And so I do believe there will be a significant increase in the way that teams are built, in your diversity stats, and not just a PR stunt, but real diversity, real diverse teams that are going to be built on this. University career fairs will be like taxis. I hope there are no professors on this call. I think here's my fundamental premise. Anything that hasn't changed in the last 10 years is going to be fundamentally disrupted. And not only has university career fairs not changed in the last 10 years, it's been the same for the last 50 years. And today, when we talk to our customers, they want to hire new grads this year, but they don't want to go to campuses. They don't want to travel. And they're looking for a virtual solution that can help them access these students and hire them remotely. And once they figure out how efficient this is, not just on time and money and productivity, but also the fact that you can actually access students from 500 schools as opposed to 10 schools that you used to visit prior, people are never going to switch back to their original form. So this is going to be a fundamentally disruptive way in which new grads are going to be hired in the future. It's all going to be virtual. It's all going to be remote. My fifth one, on-site interviews will be focused on candidates. Now, what does it mean? In the pre-COVID world, the way that you used to construct an on-site interview used to be, let's invite a candidate, put this person in a conference room, and grill this person for 4 to 5 hours. It's not the best experience for candidates. In the new world, as the shelter in place gets lifted and people slowly start to come back to work, the concept of on-site interviews will exist, but it will have a very different flavor. You would have done all your technical evaluation of the candidate beforehand. In fact, you're 90% confident that you're actually going to make an offer, as opposed to right now, you're only 25% confident. Only 1 in every 4 on-sites will usually get an offer. But in the new world of on-site, 9 out of 10, or maybe 9.5 out of 10, rounded off, will actually get an offer, and it'll be focused on candidates. The purpose of inviting a candidate on site will be for the candidate to get an idea. How is it like to work in this company? What is the atmosphere like? Can I actually have a one-on-one with my hiring manager to understand better about the processes that he put in place, whether I'm a real fit to this company? It will be really focused on giving a great experience to candidates. That's what on-site interviews will be, and not put in a conference room and write your pseudocode on a whiteboard. As developers, you've never done that in real life. Finally, the most controversial one, I believe the network effects of Silicon Valley will weaken. I think the opportunities for product and engineering folks are going to be throughout the world, if not throughout the country, if not the world. And the cost of living is highly prohibitive for a majority of the population in Silicon Valley, for a lot of really smart people. And not only will I expect them to move to different places, but I also expect them to take on really strong opportunities outside Silicon Valley. So you would actually see a real shift in the product and engineering folks moving away from Silicon Valley. It will still be the best place for you to go ahead and start a company, but the distance between Silicon Valley and number 2, I don't know exactly what number 2 is because there's a lot of debate on that, will slowly start to shrink. So those are my 6 predictions. We'll see how many of them come over the next 18, 24 months, I would say. And we're fully focused on helping companies transform themselves into a remote hiring solution. We help companies define the role to skill mapping. We help you assess candidates in a remote way. We help you do interviewing across all of the different skills. And finally, you get to see the candidate packet that's a culmination of all the interviews with clear understanding as to who gave what kind of score to your candidate that can give you confidence in making an offer. So that's HackerRank, and that's my 25 minutes. Thank you.